Everybody loves kittens, but there are just too many of them, and there aren't enough homes for them. So certainly kittens who are born outdoors may suffer if no one is caring for them other than their mama kitty. A mama kitty will try to do a very good job, but there are so many dangers outdoors, and so many kittens will not make it. And that is just heartbreaking.
Welcome to the Call the Vet Show, the podcast that helps pet parents understand and optimize the health of their furry family so they can live the full and happy life you want for them. And here's your host, veterinarian Dr. Alex Avery.
Hello, kia ora. Welcome back to another episode of the show. In this episode, we're talking all about kittens, and everyone loves kittens, I know, but more importantly, or in more detail, we're actually diving into the world of raising foster kittens, whether they're orphaned and they don't have a mother, or whether the mother's present but hasn't had a loving home to look after them and to look after her in the early weeks and first few months of their life. We're diving into why this is such an important problem, what challenges our kittens and the mothers face, and how we can raise not just healthy foster kittens, not just ones that survive, but those that thrive to become truly fantastic family members to whichever household they end up living with. And guiding us in this journey into the world of foster kittens is the wonderful Nancy Peterson, who joins us from the National Kitten Coalition, whose whole mission, aim, guiding star is to increase kitten survival rates through the power of education. So this really is a wonderful conversation, and Nancy was just such a great guest, very easy to talk to, and as you'll hear, delivers a huge amount of truly valuable and actionable information that really should be something we should all be aware of, whether we're fostering kittens now or it may well be on the cards in the future. But just before I jump into that, I wanted to share with you a review I got from the podcast. So it's actually sometimes quite hard to find reviews. This one just came up as I was actually doing something else, and I'm a little bit late. It's from July of this year, from Hildy777 in the USA. So thank you so much for taking the time to leave this review on Apple Podcasts, Hildy. And they say, I stumbled across this show while dealing with my senior dog's myriad of health concerns: slip disc, arthritis, cataracts and cataract surgery, a collapsed trachea and cough, and finally a heart murmur. I felt like I was drowning, but listening to Dr. Avery's concise yet thoughtful and actionable episodes helped me get a grasp on the situation. I genuinely appreciate this show. So thank you so much, Hildy. I'm pleased I could offer a little bit of relief for you in what sounds like a very difficult situation to be dealing with. And that's really, what I'm here for, to help people no matter what your situation, no matter where you are in the world, and no matter what your resources are. So thank you so much for leaving that review. It does mean a lot to me to hear from people. If you'd love to leave me a review as well, then I think there's links in the show notes to this one. You can go to ourpetshealth.com/review. And if you do leave it on a podcast app, then maybe just take a screenshot and send it to me, because that way I'll actually find it and I can thank you for it personally as well. So thank you so much for taking the time. It really does mean a lot to read reviews like that and to see how I am helping people. And I know this episode is going to be super helpful for lots of people as well. There's really great actionable information. So without further ado, here is the wonderful Nancy Peterson.
Here's this episode's expert interview.
Nancy, it's wonderful to be talking to you today about a topic that I have, unfortunately, a lot of experience with in my area, which is raising foster kittens, orphan kitten problems that they face, keeping them healthy, and troubles with that population. But I'd love to know a little bit of your background and what brought you into this field, because as I understand it, you were a veterinary technician, you worked in the Humane Society of the United States. So yeah, how did your career develop to find yourself involved in this area?
Sure. Well, as a child, I wanted to be a zookeeper, but everybody poo-pooed that. They said, oh, do you know how dirty that is, how dangerous that is, how difficult that is? So I studied anthropology and archaeology and loved it. But really, my heart was with the animals. So I did go back to school to get a degree in veterinary technology. And I worked as a veterinary technician for 12 and a half years in San Diego, California, similar climate to probably New Zealand. And I then Oh, I trained dogs for people with disabilities other than blindness. And then I moved close to our capital, Washington, D.C., and I worked for the largest animal protection organization, the Humane Society of the United States. I was their cat programs manager. And when I retired in 2015, I moved to a small mountain town in western Colorado of 6,900 people. And I love fostering kittens for my local animal shelter. And I'm also on the boards of several animal welfare organizations. My principal one that I do the most work for as a board member and writer and editor is the National Kitten Coalition.
Yeah, fantastic. So a wealth of professional experience and also personal experience in the nitty gritty of getting up in the middle of the night and feeding kittens and things, which I'm sure we're going to come on to in a little bit. So if we're thinking then about these kittens, what is the problem? Why is this something that we even should be talking about? Why are we, here today, I guess?
Right, because everybody loves kittens, but there are just too many of them and there aren't enough homes for them. So certainly kittens who are born outdoors may suffer if no one is caring for them other than their mama kitty. A mama kitty will try to do a very good job, but there are so many dangers outdoors and so many kittens will not make it. And that is just heartbreaking. So we do need to spay and neuter our pet cats, and we can do that, fortunately, as early as 2 months of age, or 2 pounds and 2 months of age is what our animal shelters and rescues are doing. The veterinary community doesn't really need to do that for pet cats, but pet cats we're hoping can be spayed by 5 months of age because females can, as you know, come into heat as early as 4 months of age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kittens having kittens, and we just don't want that. So the best thing is to prevent the birth of unwanted kittens so that the kittens who are born will have a loving home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, we talk about that age, and spay neutering isn't really the main focus of our conversation, but it's such an important one to nip this problem in the bud. One thing that I am aware of in the research that's done is that people, for pet owning families, that they may think, they plan to get their cat de-sexed, but that 6 months, 5 months comes around very quickly. And so there are a lot of accidental births, if you like, as well. Yes. And it might not seem like that's much of a problem, but, we've got to find homes for all of these kittens. We've got to find good homes, loving homes, so that cycle isn't repeated. So actually that early neutering is very important. And unlike our dogs, people may be aware that there's issues with timings of desexing our dogs. There doesn't seem to be those issues with cats at all. So it's something definitely jump on sooner rather than later.
That's right. No physical or detrimental behavior consequences of spaying and neutering cats at these young ages.
Yeah. So we've got these cats that are being born in the wild, or, they're being in barns. They don't really have good owner situation. There's no pet parent looking out for their well-being. What kind of challenges are they facing in those early weeks and months of life?
Well, if no one has been caring for mom cat, it's likely that she hasn't had the best nutrition. So now you have a mom cat giving birth to kittens who haven't had the best prenatal care, if you will.
Yeah.
And then mom has the challenge of feeding herself and getting enough nutrition so that she can care for her kittens. The outdoors can be a very dangerous place. As you know, there are predators, there are poisons, there are other cats to fend off. There is weather. It's just not the ideal place to be raising a family. And so unfortunately, the mortality rate, at least here in the United States, is very high, maybe 65%. And then you've got kittens who you need to find homes for, or if you don't get to them soon enough and they were born to a mom who was very unsocialized, you may not be able to place them in a loving home because they're not suitable as pet cats. So then you have to find a stable, a barn, someplace for them. And it's just not easy. Here in the United States, the shelters and rescues are overwhelmed with kittens.
Yeah, I think it's the same the world over. And certainly here in New Zealand, we have locally, I have a number of kind of rescue and foster organizations, and they're always bursting at the seams. And it also seems to me, and I don't know what your experience is, Nancy, but we used to think typically of the kitten season, kind of late spring, summer. but we're finding that we're having kittens born almost year round. So it's a never ending problem.
Right. In many parts of the United States, that is the case as well. However, in areas such as the mountains of Colorado, where I live, or places where you have severe winters, the cats are not having kittens at this time of year when it is so cold and there's such a lack of resources. And survival would be very minimal.
Yeah. Well, at least, I guess.
That's really the mission of the National Kitten Coalition, which is to increase kitten survival rates through education. We want to provide fosters, whether they're doing it on their own or through a shelter or a rescue, whether it's a veterinary clinic, whether it's anyone who's out there caring for kittens. We want to give them the resources that they need so that the kittens will survive. And we do that through education. And our website at kittencoalition.org has lots and lots of free blog articles and webinars. We even have an online kitten conference in June, and our online veterinary conference is coming up on October the 8th. So we are passionate about saving more kittens, and we hope that anyone who's listening is as well and can just log on to our website and take advantage of all of our resources. I'm sure, as you know, when you probably went to veterinary school, when I went to vet tech school, we didn't learn anything about pediatric and neonatal care. No, and so nothing. If I brought you a neonatal kitten and you didn't have experience with a rescue or a shelter, you probably didn't see kittens till they were adopted at 8 weeks of age. Well, you might not really know what to do with a neonate. So we really are out there trying to also educate the veterinary community, because they are critical to this effort to save kittens.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, and there is a lot of work that goes on, I guess, behind the scenes and through the School of Hard Knocks, for people who haven't come across the resources that you have to offer, who just get stuck in and think, I've got a number of vet nurses who are passionate about cats in general, but raising these kittens and trying to find homes for them. I hate to think of the number of stray cats that we rehome through our clinic, because they come to us with no home, maybe, not particularly unwell, but not doing that great. And then we nurse them back to health and then find homes for them. So there's a lot of people working very hard in the background as well. And I think just taking a little break and sing out to all of the veterinary clinics out there working on this behind the scenes. There's a lot in the press at the minute. I was just reading another piece where a vet is being hounded online for no reason at all, effectively. And there's a lot of negativity, but there's an awful lot of good work that gets done that people aren't aware of. So anyway, that's by the by, Nancy. If we're thinking about how we can raise these kittens, how we can nurse them, not just so that they survive, but so that they thrive, that really is something that is very possible and that anyone can do. Like you say, what's the first step in raising a healthy kitten?
Knowledge, knowing what to do, right? And very important. I was scared to foster my first kittens, and I have never fostered bottle babies, kittens who I have to be nursed with a bottle and stimulated to urinate. I do feel that I could do it, but it's so much more intensive, because depending on their age, you are waking up every few hours. They have to be fed. They have to be stimulated to eliminate. And the older I get, the more I need interrupted sleep. So I foster for the weaned kittens, meaning they can eat solid food. And I thoroughly enjoy it. And everything that I've learned from the National Kitten Coalition has helped me to be a better foster. It's how I've learned to recognize, as well as my background, of course, as a veterinary technician, something's not right with this kitten. It's helped me to understand, not just medically, but part of the very important of fostering is socializing them. If they're from outdoors and they haven't had much contact with people, they may be frightened of people. They may be frightened of toys. They're frightened of things that they're unfamiliar, which even includes your foster kitten room. So you have to gradually gain their trust. I'm really a fan of letting them set the pace. I don't force myself on them, but I lure them with treats and wand toys. And pretty soon, it could take 3 weeks before they're lying in my legs and comfortable and rolling over. And that's the most rewarding to me, is taking a kitten who is frightened and doesn't trust people and turning them into a little love bug that would, just be a wonderful, wonderful pet in somebody's home.
Yeah, absolutely. What the rewarding work. And it doesn't always take that 3 weeks. Sometimes they come around much faster. I guess it depends on that, the mother's situation, if there was a mother, and what those early weeks involved. I guess talking about whether there's a mother or not, does that make a difference to the work that needs to be done? I mean, obviously we think of feeding, but is there anything else that we need to think about with regards whether mother's present or not?
Well, the mother teaches the kittens so much, and whether the mother is afraid of you, that can get transmitted to the kittens as well. So sometimes when there's a feral, I'll say a very feral mother, it might not be fair, I would say, to keep her confined with the kittens.
Yeah.
Although she can give the best care. If she's so stressed out, she might not be able to give the best care. But yes, mother cats can do the job so much better than a surrogate human mother. They can nurse them any time of the day or night. They keep them clean. They stimulate them. They teach them to use the litter box, although really nobody needs to teach a kitten to use litter box. If you provide the appropriate material, they will use it. And she cleans them. And when the kittens are together, that's so important too, because they learn how to modify, we'll say, their behavior so they're not being too rough with their siblings. So when they're really playing rough and one of them, okay, that was a little, I'll back off. This kitten starts seeing that mom's eating food and they'll imitate her. So having a mom is really wonderful. I've had 3 moms with kittens that I've fostered, and it's just been delightful. They've been wonderful moms, and to see how well they take care of their kittens. The sad part is when the kittens go back to the shelter, they fly out the door, and mom cat is waiting and waiting for her chance for a good home. But ultimately, the cats that I've fostered have all been adopted.
Yeah, wonderful. So that's a happy ending all round, I guess. Absolutely. Just jumping back into that stimulation to toilets, and I think that's something that a lot of people won't be aware of is a need for young animals, for most young animals. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Sure. So nature is very intelligent. Kittens cannot urinate and defecate on their own because that's a way to keep the nest clean. If the nest is dirty, it could attract predators. So mom cat has to actually lick the genitals and the anus of the kitten to get them to urinate and defecate. She eats it and it's all clean and nice. So when we people are acting as moms, then we have to take a very soft, maybe cotton ball or a cloth or a tissue. And before we feed them, if they're bottle babies, because they need to be stimulated till they're about 4 weeks of age. After that time, they can go to the bathroom on their own. Yep. So until that time, if we are caring for them, we have to take a little soft cloth and gently put it on their privates and not rub it, because that would be very irritating. But we actually make contact with the skin and we kind of just move it around in a circle, and we keep doing that until they have finished urinating and defecating. Now, they'll usually urinate every time that they're stimulated, but they may not defecate every time, maybe every 12 to 24, sometimes even 36 hours, depending on how much they're eating.
Yeah. And it's important to be very gentle, like you say there, because it's easy to get carried away, and it can get a little bit sore back there if we're doing it too enthusiastically. Yeah. Such an important thing to do, because the last thing we want is massively full bladder and a very constipated and unwell kitten.
One other thing that is so important, I'm kind of the social media policewoman. I see kittens being nursed on their back, and that is a definite no. We don't feed kittens on their back as we would human babies, because we risk them aspirating the formula, which means instead of going into their stomach, it goes into their lungs, and kittens can die from that.
Yeah. So we're trying to replicate nature in a way, and the kitten will always be on their legs, kind of nuzzling into mum, so we can get them in that position and feed them that way. And with feeding them, Nancy, when we're thinking of bottle raising our kittens, how often are we having to feed them, and how is that changing as they are growing and maturing, and hopefully the sleepless nights get less and less?
Right. So it mostly depends on their weight, not so much their age, because you could have a poorly nourished kitten who is 5 weeks old, but only has the stomach capacity of a 2-week-old kitten. So there's really wonderful information. Well, there's some on our website. We have a wonderful nonprofit called Maddie's Fund, and it does provide a wonderful stomach capacity chart according to weight of the kitten. So it'll tell you this is how much a kitten weighing this much should eat every day, and this is how often. Divide this up into 6 or 8 feedings a day because their stomach has just so much capacity. That's why you don't get to sleep too much. But it does get better as the kitten gets a little older. Yeah.
No, it is. Those early stages are very hard work. I remember a long time ago now, my wife and I were in India at rescue organization, and we had a bunch of puppies, not kittens, but at that age they're all little bundles of fluff that need kind of the same care. And there was a number of other volunteers there, and I think we took turns for 2 nights in a row. And after that I was pretty exhausted, but it's incredibly rewarding, and you can almost see them growing before your very eyes as well.
You can. I have a chart that shows week by week how they should be behaviorally and physically maturing. And I just love seeing that every week. This is the week they're going to start playing with each other. This is the week they'll be focused on toys. This is the week that X is going to happen. And it is just fascinating.
Yeah, hitting those milestones, much like we look for with our human children as well.
Yes. I love spending time with my fosters. I love taking pictures of them. And all my friends come and visit when I have foster kittens.
Obviously to see you as well, Nancy, not just the kittens.
I don't know about that. I get more visitors when I have my kittens.
Yeah. So if we've got through that bottle feeding, how are we introducing solids to them? Because you say they naturally see mum eating and take those cues. If mum isn't present, I wonder what age that happens at. And also if mum isn't there, how are we introducing foods to them?
So I would say at about 5 weeks of age, 6 weeks of age, mom is going to start backing off on offering the milk bar to them because she's getting pretty exhausted herself. And so if there is no mom, then we as caregivers, and sometimes we get them 4 weeks of age and they can go on to solid food. But we have to introduce it very gradually. Their digestive systems are very sensitive at that point. And so we're going to make a gruel for them, which is moist kitten food, probably with some water in it. And it's going to be like a soup because at this point, all they know is probably how to suck. They don't know how to lap things up. So at first, it's pretty funny. They're kind of sucking up their food. They've never eaten from a bowl. Or a dish, I would say. So we introduce this gruel in a very shallow dish. And I like to put some on a little baby plastic spoon and offer it to them and let them get a little taste of it. And they go, oh, okay. Hey, that's interesting. And then we feed them some more. And then eventually I will lower the spoon down to the dish. And, okay. And it can be pretty messy because they don't realize they're not supposed to be stepping in their food. And then, as the days go by, I will add less and less water to this mixture so that hopefully by the time they're 8 weeks of age, ready to be adopted into a home, they're eating their canned or wet food.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, just that slow process and taking your time and being prepared for the mess. Because cats are generally very clean animals, but not at that stage when we're introducing food. I guess they're a bit like the toddler where you need the bib and a plastic sheet on the ground as well because it goes everywhere.
Exactly. And here in the States, I believe it's a Japanese product. It's made by a company called Inaba, and it's called Churu, Churu. I call it a lickable treat. It comes in a little tube, and you can squeeze the end. I have never met a cat or a kitten that did not love that. And they actually make a kitten formula. And
Okay.
so I use that a lot. Sometimes I'll mix that in with the gruel or lead them to the bowl with that. I use that a lot for socialization. And perhaps I never try to wrap them in a towel or put them in a bowl to weigh them on a little scale. They want to get off. They jump out. I get so frustrated. I just take a dab of churu, put it right on the scale. And then I have to deal with everybody wants to get on the scale. But it's a great way to weigh them. So I don't know, you probably have some form of a lickable treat. And I encourage people to use those as well. They're wonderful.
Work with them. Don't fight them.
No, because you can subdue them and force them to submit, but that doesn't teach them to trust you or that people are good. So the best way is to work with them, and food and play are wonderful motivators at that age.
Absolutely. And I think that's become a big change from my point of view, in the veterinary industry as a whole, is the fear-free movement and working with our patients rather than just getting the job done, which, you go back 15, 20 years would have been the case. But also pet parents would have been upset if you'd said, well, we'll come back another time and try it a different way. They expected the job to be done. But thankfully, that's not the case. And we've got much happier patients in the vet clinic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with thinking, so that we've got them feeding, we've got them toileting, they're growing, they're developing, they're socially maturing, and they're becoming loving kittens. Is there anything that we're doing for preventive health at this early stage before they're rehomed?
I foster through my local animal shelter, and certainly they are vaccinating them as early as 4 weeks of age and worming them as early as 2 weeks of age, because internal parasites can really take their toll on a kitten's health. And so if you are fostering through a rescue or a shelter, then they will set up the schedule for the kittens and I bring them back. They get weighed, although I weigh them every day. That's part of the deal. We have to make sure they're gaining weight. If they're not gaining weight, that's often the first sign that something's not right. So yes, they have to have vaccinations, and they get them every few weeks because, as you know, if they've had the first milk, the fluid, the colostrum from their mom, then they've gotten some maternal antibodies. But we don't know for each kitten when those stop being effective, stop interfering with the vaccination. And that's why kittens and puppies and babies all need a series of vaccinations and also a series of wormings. And then here in the United States, kittens it depends on the state, but usually it's 14 weeks of age minimum, a rabies vaccination. So yeah, there's a lot going on when they're that young. And then, of course, a year in a kitten's life, a 1-year-old cat is a 15-year-old in a human life. And so we really stress they must see the veterinarian at least once a year. When they're seniors, probably 2 times a year, because a lot can go on as their systems are starting to slow down. But I'm so glad you mentioned fear-free, because when I was a vet tech, we scruffed, we stretched them out to restrain them. And my God, no wonder kittens and cats didn't like to go to the veterinarian. Look what we did to them. We just terrified them. And cats are often the underdogs. First it was the dogs who were cared for, and the dog foods that were created, and the dog vaccines, and dog. And I love dogs. But cats have always played second fiddle, in my opinion. And so I'm just really, really happy that cats are getting their due now. And people want to understand cats more so that they can live happier lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may be a shock to all of the cat lovers out there, but actually from a veterinary spend point of view or a healthcare spend point of view, people spend a lot more on dogs than cats. So yeah, I think they still play second fiddle, but there's the more appreciation, I guess, for the benefits that they bring to us, and potentially the easier time they give us for being owners as well. There's less intense need to care for them later on in life from the walking and all that kind of thing as well.
Right. And I think part of you see cats at the veterinarian less is because they don't go in cars that often, and they don't have to get stuffed in a carrier that often. And that is so scary, and people can't do it, and it stresses them as well. So there are wonderful ways to acclimate cats to their carriers and make them safe places so that it's not such an ordeal to take your cat to the veterinarian. There are also some wonderful drugs that have been developed now, like gabapentin. And if your cat doesn't have, I think it's kidney problems, then it's such a safe drug to give to chill your cat out in the car and even at the veterinarian's office. So yeah, there's a lot being done, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah, but even at the early stage for our fostering, if we're getting them used to carriers, or when we're bringing them home, having just been fostered and we're adopting them, getting used to the carriers, maybe just going in the car, the engine on, and then you go out the car. It's all these little things that we're doing in these very early stages of life can make a huge difference.
They do. And one negative experience can really set you back. Yeah. So it's important to avoid those at all costs.
Yeah, because cats are very clever. That's for sure.
Yes,
that's for sure.
They are.
So Nancy, we've covered an awful lot of ground, but we have also only just scratched the surface. I think we've given a really lovely overview.
Intended.
Yeah.
No pun.
My son would have been very proud of that pun.
That was a good one.
Where can people go online? You mentioned some of those resources for people who find themselves in this situation. I guess where can people continue this education, and maybe where can they find support, and how can they get involved as well if they're thinking, well, I've never fostered kittens, but there is a problem in my area, or I wonder if there is, and I'd love to jump into this rewarding activity. How can people start?
Before I tell you that, there's one thing I want to say that I feel is so important. Good Samaritans who find kittens, the first thing they want to do is feed them. That can kill them. If they are cold, their digestive system cannot absorb the food that they're going to feed them, and it can actually kill them. So please, if you find a kitten, the first thing you have to do, you have to warm up the kitten, and it's not enough to hold them close to your body. So check out our website. We have critical care for kittens, which includes low body temperature, low blood sugar, dehydration, and we have fleas, and kittens can get sucked of their blood by a huge flea infestation. Those things can kill them.
Yeah,
so check out our website, kittencoalition.org. Look at all the wonderful articles that have been written, and not just the articles. If you go to the end of each article, there are wonderful resources. If you're a pet parent, if you're a shelter or rescue, if you're a veterinary professional, we want to give you other resources that you can dive in deeper, but we definitely give you the most critical information that you need. And you're going to learn about things about cats you didn't even know existed. I learned things as well. Kittens born without an anus. I mean, it's just incredible what can happen. I never had children. Maybe that happens with human children as well. So you will learn a lot. As I said, education saves lives. Also, our webinars are free. And if you follow us on social media, you'll get lots and lots of fun tips. And that's just Facebook or LinkedIn or what other social media channels you follow. We're really trying to get the word out there. We've been attending veterinary conferences, and the last one I attended was in July, the American Veterinary Medical Association, and almost nobody had heard of us. And I was like, yes, that's right. That's why we're here. When they heard about our resources, they were so excited. So the more people who know about our resources, share our resources, the more kittens will be saved. And that's
Absolutely.
What we're for.
And what a wonderful mission. I think that's something that everyone can jump behind and work towards and appreciate the amazing work that you're doing. So Nancy, thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful conversation. We could talk about kittens all day, I know, but yeah, thank you for the work that you're doing. And I know this is going to make a huge difference to the survival of so many kittens in the future.
Helping your pet live the happy, healthy life they deserve.
What a wonderful conversation. Just listening back to that, I really did enjoy our chat. Nancy was so easy to talk to and so generous with her time and her expertise. If you know someone who's fostering kittens, if it's something that you're interested in diving more into, then make sure you check out the resources and links that we talked about. You can find that over at callthevet.org. And if someone else in your life needs this information, then be sure to share this podcast podcast episode with them as well. It really will help in that mission to improve the survival of these kittens, something that is very possible and is such a rewarding thing to be a part of as well. And now all that's left is for me to remind you to hit that subscribe button on your podcasting app if you're not already subscribed, so that you don't miss out on all of my future episodes. And until the next one, I'm veterinarian Dr. Alex. This is the Call the Vet Show, because they're family.
That's it for this episode of the Call the Vet Show. Be sure to visit callthevet.org to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. We'll see you next time.